Hello and welcome to AFL Tonight. I'm Ruby Slisher. It's great to have your company. These are our top stories. Marcus Bontempelli tries to prove his fitness as the Dogs' injury crisis deepens ahead of a clash with the Swans. Some Collingwood veterans push their case for an Anzac Day return. We'll hear from star Nick Dacos. And as two players front the Tribunal, is it time for an overhaul after a week of controversy? Well, Western Bulldogs skipper Marcus Bontempelli is among a number of stars pushing to be fit for Thursday night's clash with Sydney. The Dogs are reeling from a brutal injury toll in their loss to Geelong, with one of the toughest tasks in footy awaiting Luke Beveridge's team.
A lengthy injury watch list headlined by Marcus Bontempelli, the star skipper managing a knee complaint ahead of Thursday night's clash with Sydney. Luke Beveridge admitting there's still a bit to play out.
We'll give him right up until the death. I mean, we've had two 6-day turnarounds. This is another shorter one, 6-day.
Tim English won't play as he works through a knee issue of his own. Ed Richards and Aaron Norton among those pushing to play despite soreness.
And ultimately, they'll play if there's no risk that they'll injure what they're sore with anymore. But if there's any concern that they'll be impeded or a discomfort might turn into an injury, then they won't play.
Sam Darcy's season brought to an end by a ruptured ACL. Beveridge labelling the injury flattening, but suggesting the 22-year-old is in a good headspace.
He's in here now. Just delayed the surgery by a day or two just to let the swelling go down a little bit. But he's in a good frame of mind. He's a great character. He'll come back and be a player that will continue to improve and grow. And yeah, we're going to miss him for a little while, but we've just got to deal with that, and others need to step up.
Tom Liberatore recovering from yet another concussion. Beveridge, though, confident the veteran can make a quick return.
Tom's in today. He's okay. Yeah, he's come out of the game pretty good. He's feeling well. He's sleeping and he hasn't got any headaches or anything like that. So it's good signs. He'll go through the usual protocols and whether that means that he's available, for the Fremantle game or not, I'm not sure. We're pretty conservative, looking after our players who've had a head knock or two.
The Dogs may be undermanned, but the ladder-leading Swans are still expecting some of the form that saw Beveridge's men on top of the ladder earlier this year.
What they have out on the football field is still an unbelievable football team. The calibre of that list and squad is really deep, and we expect them at their best.
The Dogs with plenty of work to do if they're to topple a Swans side that currently sits atop the footy world. David Zeta, Fox Sports.
Collingwood will consider 3 big inclusions for their Anzac Day clash with Essendon. A trio of premiership players pressed their case for selection at training.
Collingwood skipper Darcy Moore clearing every hurdle so far, although still no guarantee to return for Anzac Day, but he's putting his best foot forward after hamstring and bursa soreness.
Yeah, hopefully he gets through training this week and gets, and then he'll play. So hopefully, I don't know where he's at, but hopefully he's playing.
Moore has had a wretched run in 2026. Calf injuries during the pre-season, a hamstring concern at training just before his scheduled return, and then another soft tissue issue against GWS. The Pies say they'll take a cautious approach with their captain's return, but Jordan De Goey is looking set to face Essendon on Saturday after recovering from a concussion. Still Sidebottom is pushing his case after a hip concern, but there's no guarantee that he'll come back either. After a tight win against Carlton last Thursday, the Pies hoping for a faster start against the Bombers.
How do you find that balance of trying to attack, because we don't want to be down and heading into the last quarter to wait to have that mindset. We want to be proactive with it. We want to come out this week in the first quarter and be able to kick 7 goals. So we'll work out the mental side of things and why that's happening. But I think the ability to kick 7 goals when the game's online is also a strength too. So, it's good.
Collingwood have Nick Dacos to thank after their stirring last quarter fight back against the Blues. And the man himself has flagged some more time in the forward line as the Pies search for a spark in their front half.
Playing up forward, and I feel like gives us a different look as a team, and also allows more players to roll through the midfield for us because we've got so many really strong midfielders. So I think being a dynamic team, players that can switch positions, that works in our favour, and whatever the coach thinks, wherever he thinks my best position is, I'm happy to play.
So Moore, De Goey and Sidebottom all on the track for Collingwood as they try to prove their fitness ahead of Saturday's Anzac Day clash against Essendon. And this is a game that Collingwood have dominated in recent years. They've only lost once to the Bombers on this day since 2017. And within these four walls, it is a very highly valued fixture as the Pies try to honour the Anzacs again.
We know we represent so many when we play on a day like Anzac Day, and we just want to do those people proud and try and play a great game of footy.
Jeremy Howe trained forward again for the Magpies, but there was no Bobby Hill on the track. He's still on a personalised program as he works his way back for a return in the second half of the season. Drew Jones, Fox Sports News.
There are two cases up before the Tribunal this evening. David Zita is following it all along. Zeets, Joe Fonte from the Giants was up first. What's the latest on this one?
This one has just wrapped up, Ruby. So Joe Fonte's charge has been upheld. So he is going to miss this week's game for the Giants against North Melbourne on Sunday afternoon. So Joe Fonte himself gave evidence. He said that he thought it was shoulder-to-shoulder contact. He was going to go for a smother initially, then realised that wasn't going to be realistic. So instead, he braced and went in for the bump. So he pleaded guilty to the bump. He just said it was body contact rather than high contact. And it was low impact, I should say, rather than medium impact. So if he had succeeded on either part of those two arguments, they would have seen him fined at worst and free to play at best if they just threw it out entirely. But fine is what happened in the end, and he now misses the game against North. So they came back a short time ago, the Tribunal. They said that high contact was made on the balance of probabilities, and medium impact was correctly classified. So he misses this week against the Roos.
Now, John Noble from the Suns is also appearing tonight. How will the Suns approach this case?
Yeah, these ones, it's difficult with this one. This looks a bit more cut and dry to be a regulation bump. So basically the way these normally get argued is they try and argue either it's not a bump or that if it is a bump, it's primarily body contact or lower than medium impact. So if they succeed on those two fronts, then they would, again, like with Fonte, it would be a fine. And if they're able to get the charge thrown out entirely and say it's not a bump, it's not a careless act, then obviously he's free to play. But I think they're going to have some trouble with it. We know, of course, that Tom Edwards was taken from the ground after some AFL ARC intervention. He received a HIA from the Essendon doctor, went back on the field. The AFL ARC intervened. I think they've since acknowledged that that was incorrect on the ARC doctor's part, but that's where this one sits at the moment. So John Noble will front the Tribunal probably in a few moments' time, and we'll keep you up to speed on that on the digital platforms across the course of the night.
Yep, and finally, Zeets, we learnt last night that Elijah Hollands has been admitted to hospital. Have there been any further developments?
Yeah, so WorkSafe now involved, and there's been a lot of discussion about when or if WorkSafe would get involved, and they have as of today, we found out. So they're assessing the matter to determine whether any action is required under the Occupational Health and Safety Act. So they're going to work through their processes. We know, of course, Carlton working through its processes, and then the AFL and the AFLPA will also be looped in, as they already have been, in terms of where this sits and what comes out of it, what sanctions, if any, are provided and given down to Carlton. There were, I think, on a more personal front, two posts today. So one from Ben Hollands, who is the father of Elijah, and of course Ollie Hollands, and he posted a pretty moving, to be honest, the text. He posted a photo of his son, and he also said, "For anyone in the midst of healing, you are loved. You have a unique and defined purpose. You are seen whole. I know who my son is. I will lift him up until he's restored in full. For those supporting someone who's struggling, encourage them, affirm them, love them, go to them and remind them of who they truly are." So quite a beautiful post there from Ben in relation to his son, of course, who, as we know, was admitted to hospital last night. Also, Oliver Hollands, his brother, posted a short time ago, also his Carlton teammate, as we know. He posted that there were no words to describe how grateful the family is feeling for the love and support. It's incredibly challenging to watch his brother go through something like this, but he's forever grateful, as the family is, for the ongoing support for Elijah and the family as a whole. So, there are no winners out of this, but the family clearly rallying around Elijah. There's been an outpouring of support for him in public spheres, in private circles as well, I'm sure, just to make sure he is okay. We know he's in hospital and he's doing the best he can, but I think now the focus turns to Carlton and their handling of it. But Elijah and his family clearly banding together, and rightly so given the circumstances, Ruby.
Absolutely. All of our thoughts here, the Fox crew, with the Hollands family as well, in a really tricky situation. Zeet, thanks so much for running us through us. The Brisbane Lions received the wake-up call they needed on Sunday, according to the skipper. The Lions lost to Melbourne by just 2 points in a match with 10 lead changes. Brisbane had won their previous 3 matches by an average of 6 goals.
The weekend was a great wake-up call for us. Probably, you know, when you get on a little bit of a streak of winning and you have 3 wins in a row, some of the things that you really value as a team might start to slip. No one means to do it on purpose or anything like that, but you know, it's a great reminder just how hard this game is, and you have to be on edge going into each week.
The Lions will be without defender Noah Answorth against the Crows this week after he suffered a second concussion in 3 weeks.
There's obviously concern there. You know, he's a good friend of mine, and you know, you never like seeing guys get concussions, but obviously to get a couple, you know, in a short period of time is concerning. So, yeah, I think he's feeling all right. We had the day off yesterday, obviously playing Sunday, so I wasn't able to catch up with him, but I believe he's in the club today, which is great sign. So, you know, from a teammate perspective, he's one of the all-time great teammates, super tough, just willing to do absolutely anything, and sad to see him go down with a concussion, but we'll wrap our arms around him, and from a club perspective, we're just all about his health.
The last 4 matches between Adelaide and Brisbane have been decided by under 2 goals. Andy Brayshaw admits Anzac round means a bit more to him than most. It's widely known the Star Dockers midfielder had 2 brothers who played AFL, but his other sibling, Will Brayshaw, notably has dedicated a big part of his adult life to the Defence Force.
He's served for a long time now. Fresh out of school, went into the Defence Force and has been serving for about 10 years now. So, no, I'm super grateful for the work that him and his and all the number of people that are in the Army and Defence Force, what they do for us. There's a lot goes on behind the scenes, so I'm very thankful for him and everyone else.
The Dockers face Carlton in the Len Hall tribute game, the 25th edition of the match, named in honour of WA's last surviving Gallipoli veteran. Last year, Brayshaw took home the best on-ground medal, but 2026 has seen the midfielder take on more run-with roles, as adds a new dimension to his game.
You know, I can't expect other blokes to sacrifice certain areas of their game if I'm not willing to, so happy to play whatever old JL needs me to do, and at the moment it's working, so I think we'll stick with it.
The Dockers have won 7 of their past 8 Len Hall games and face a Carlton side reeling after their loss to Collingwood last Thursday night. Time to bring in Corbin Middlemiss ahead of another big edition of Midweek Tackle. Corbin, thanks for joining us. The biggest tribunal case of the season ultimately got thrown out because of the conduct of one of the panel members. Is it time for an overhaul and a return to the good old days of the in-person hearings?
I think at the very least, can we get it down to just a couple of sites rather than everyone at home on Zoom or on their phone or laptop or whatever it turns out to be, dogs barking and the rest of it. I think at the very least, can we just get the Port Adelaide guys all in one location at maybe HQ? Get everyone from AFL House in one location at Melbourne. I think that's a nice jumping off point. At least you can do a video link up from there, but it's only 2 or 3 areas that you basically need to link up rather than to everybody else's home. So COVID's a long time ago now, back in 2020, 2021. It's time to bring everyone back together, I think, at least in one set location in each city. And I know, Rubes, there's been a lot of talk about, you know, how come we don't go back to the old Kanga court style setup rather than necessarily having all these lawyers involved? Well, if for people with long memories, back in the late 90s, essentially charges would get taken all the way to the High Court. So basically the AFL put all the legal process in place as a way to protect themselves against that. So a little bit of back to the future. It involves a lot of cooperation from the clubs if we are to do that, to guard against taking charges or suspensions on field all the way to the highest court in the land.
Now, you spoke with the St Kilda president yesterday. What's your read on how the Saints are tracking at the moment under their coach, Ross Lyon?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, they keep saying, look, we've improved, we've had a tougher draw, we're going to see it in the long run. Well, they'd want to be winning this Sunday against the Eagles, who, to their credit, have been pretty plucky so far in the young season. Yes, they've been overpowered at times. They've got a very young group. They're least experienced and the youngest in the competition, so that's a significant change. But it's a game that the Saints need to win, and that they need to start building those. I know they've changed the timeline seemingly a couple of times under Ross Lyon, but it felt like this week that the pressure is going to mount on him, and even his conduct in the press conferences, which is being called out. What do they say about sunlight being the best disinfectant? Maybe that's the case for Ross Lyon. It feels like a lot of people are going to be watching his pressers even more closely now to see how he handles questions. And in the words of Andrew Bassett, what's a good question and what's a silly question? I think a lot of people will be judging that this weekend and going forward.
Absolutely. And finally, what have we got to look forward to on Midweek Tackle this evening?
So two big things. Clearly that the fallout continues at the Carlton Football Club. So what's WorkSafe's involvement in all of that? And for the Blues, what does the timeline look like really from here as we sit on Tuesday evening through until when they play their game in Perth on Saturday night? Michael Voss is due to speak in the middle of that at 10 o'clock on Thursday. Also, is sort of global expansion for the game back on the radar about potentially the west coast of America and India, where Andrew Dillon obviously bobbed up in the pre-season. So we'll get into a little bit of that tonight, Rubes, on the Midweek Tackle following AFL 360.
Looking forward to it. Thanks for joining us, Corbin. AFL 360 is coming up shortly on Fox Footy. Jared Waitley and Gary Lyon will be joined by Nick Dacos, Zach Merritt and former umpire Rain Chamberlain. Then it's over to the Midweek Tackle team for all the breaking news around the game. Plenty more to come on AFL Tonight. We'll get the inside word on the Pies premiership ambitions from one of their stars. That's next. Stay with us. Welcome back to AFL Tonight. I'm Ruby Slisher. Phoenix Gothard has made a flying start to life in the AFL. The Giants picked 12 bolter from the 2023 draft. Gothard has had to bide his time due to injuries over his first two seasons. The Murray Bushrangers product debuted in round one and hasn't looked back, earning a Rising Star nomination for his performance in the Sydney Derby.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a wild journey. Obviously over the first 2 years I've had a few setbacks, but I've had to learn from that along the way. And yeah, I had a good pre-season, and off the back of that I was able to get my body right and lead into this year, which has been enjoyable and fun.
The Giants host North Melbourne in Canberra on Sunday, with GWS hoping to welcome back Jesse Hogan after he was a late withdrawal against Sydney due to a corked calf. Aaron Cadman and Stephen Cornelio are set to return after bouts of concussion, while Brent Daniels is also expected to come into the side. Essendon and Collingwood are preparing for one of the biggest games of the home and away season. The Anzac Day match regularly draws capacity crowds and culminates in thrilling finishes. The next instalment will be Isaac Quaner's sixth Anzac Day match. The Pies defender spoke about the significance of the day with our reporter David Zeta.
It's something that growing up a Collingwood fan, it's something that you don't take lightly and you've always kind of dreamt to be part of. And seeing just how many, incredible people are here today and the words that have been spoken, it means a lot. And actually speaking to the commander that actually spoke earlier today, just how much it means to her as well was really cool to kind of share that moment as well.
How does it, is it, other than the grand final, is this the biggest day on the calendar, do you think? You've played in some big games.
Yeah, I've been very lucky to play in a few big ones, but yeah, it's got to be right up there. It's incredible. The crowd, the environment, the game is always a close one. Doesn't matter where either team sits. It's always a really, really close game. So yeah, it's got to be right up there.
We probably thought it might have been a bit of a one-sided affair, but it seems like Essendon are well and truly back on track in terms of their form. How much are you taking them seriously heading into that massive clash?
Yeah, well, I think, as I said, it doesn't really matter where either team's going, but they're trending in a really, really good direction at the moment. And I was lucky enough to watch basically the whole of their game against Gold Coast, and it was just such an entertaining game. Both teams were scoring at a really high rate, and I think it's going to make for an absolute spectacle on Saturday Arvo.
What do you think about we speak about the game and how big it is, and Essendon and yourselves, the rivalry itself, Collingwood Essendon, do you lean much into that, or is it more about the day, Anzac Day as a whole?
Yeah, I would say we probably lean more into the day and what it means. I think that's usually the messaging Fly goes with. Whereas like a Carlton, it's probably more the rivalry. But yeah, I think definitely it's bigger than the game. This one for sure.
Yeah. And you speak about Fly and how he's been the whole way through. How have you managed the early parts of the season with you not having Darcy Moore out there? How do you think the Collingwood back six has managed in his absence for the most part of the season?
Yeah, it's always never ideal to be without a big key defender, but I feel like to the boys' credit, like Billy Frampton, I feel like has really stood up. Jeremy Howe's been awesome. I've had to play a bit taller at times, so we've just got players, I feel like, in our backline that can kind of plug positions. And I think we've actually defended at a really high rate for the majority of this year. So it's only just going to, really add another potential, really strong link to our backline if Darcy's back.
I know it's not part of your concern really, because it's the other end of the ground, but the scoring woes that everyone's been talking about with you guys, how much have you been working on that to try and fix it? How do you get higher scores on the board, even though you are banking some wins as well? Yeah,
well, I guess it's just like we're not a finished product. Like we just keep finding things that we need to improve on, and that's definitely a key one. And I feel like with the way that the league's trending, it's a scoring game at the moment. So, we'll train it today, we'll train it tomorrow. We're going to continue to keep training it and working on it, and picking some of the brains of some of footy's smartest people that we have at our club. Yeah, it's almost exciting because I feel like as you said, we've still banked a few wins, but we're not maximising on the scoreboard. So yeah, look forward for that coming soon.
So how do you feel about yourselves as a club, like where you sit in the pecking order of the competition? Even because it seems like you think that you've still got a lot of room to improve. So at your best, do you think are you a flag contender still, despite what some may say?
Yeah, most definitely, 100%. I just think a team that can defend at a really high rate, and then once we get our scoring right, like it's a pretty good recipe, I feel like, right there. But don't get me wrong, there's some incredible teams that are playing some great footy at the moment. So, and we've got some big games coming up. So it's going to be a great opportunity to really prove ourselves.
Having Nick Dacos on your side heading into a game, first of all, that last quarter last week, I mean, we were all marvelling at it off field. How aware of it were you on the field?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. I often don't really realise when someone's taking over, I guess other than maybe goals. But I noticed that big time. Like, he was incredible. Anytime you got Nick on the field, you're a chance to win the game, and that's just the reality, and that's, what happens when you're a legend of the game already. But, yeah, the way that he just was able to put us on his back and, will us for that win, it was just incredible. And to be fair, like, our young boys really stood up as well. Like Oscar Steen was huge, Will Hayes, Angus Anderson. Like, it was really exciting to see those boys really step up at big moments throughout the game too.
So just there's a lot of talk about how old the side is and all the old stuff that gets spoken about. How much belief is there in this young brigade that's coming through that they're the next wave and they're already delivering and pulling their weight?
Yeah, I was about to say, that's the thing. Like, it hasn't really been much of a lag period at all. They're in and they're making an impact straight away. So it's been really, really exciting, and I think, I'd love for there to be as much talk about, these young guys doing great things as there is about, our experience list. So that'd be my only messaging.
All right, good luck this weekend.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us on AFL Tonight. Make sure you stay across all the latest on Fox Sports News and on Fox Footy. It's time for AFL 360. Enjoy.